That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me today I have Dill. How are you, Dill?
Good, mate. Doing well. Doing good for a Thursday going into the Easter weekend. Which is exciting.
I was going to say happy Easter for the coming weekend. It will be a nice break. I kept forgetting during work this week that it was a 4-day weekend, that we finished on Thursday, but unfortunately that doesn't always have the sort of the positive edge to it that you'd expect, because it just means you're sort of cramming 5 days into 4 sometimes. But you got out the other side of it, so I'm happy to be looking at a 4-day weekend now, and two games of City to talk about, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we'll start with the Coventry game that was Monday night. So it does feel like it's been a very short week from a City perspective as well, with that 1-1 draw with Coventry. I guess I'm trying to cast my mind back to our last episode. I guess we were sort of talking about, any sort of result, any points from this game really being a positive for us. And especially with the way results went with other teams around us, that was sort of how it proved to be.
Yeah, I haven't checked who else in the race. What's the result? What are we looking at? So
let me pull up the results. Let me bring that up on this screen here. So if I go present my screen. So really we're looking at the fact that Luton lost to Blackburn, which I guess was a relatively unexpected result in the sense that Blackburn have been on an awful run of form. And
the Plymouth did there too.
Yeah, and exactly. So it's pretty impressive they held on for that. I mean, Plymouth did beat Sheffield United, so we'll look at the table in a second, and it does make things a bit interesting now with teams bunching up at the bottom. But we also had, where are we? So Portsmouth and Derby drawing is probably the other significant one, because it means that Derby did stay below us in the table. And Cardiff losing to Stoke was the other big one as well. That's the massive one, because it is starting to get to that point now, and we'll look ahead in a little bit, but we are getting to that point now where you're almost just saying you just want Cardiff to keep dropping points and Cardiff to stay, they're now 3 points below us with minus 12 goal difference between us as well, meaning that even if they were to win this weekend and we were to lose, we're still not in the relegation zone. So you've kind of got, 2 results from Cardiff needed to overtake us. And it just means, if we are to pick up a win against either or both of Swansea and Preston, you're suddenly starting to look at it's almost becoming a mathematical safety conversation.
Again, footy math. We love it here.
Yeah.
It's been treating us really well coming into the end of the season, unfortunately. Or fortunately. Well, I was sort of on topic, off topic, I was sort of seeing the controversy around, different code NRL, with how the Tigers are going with some youngster drama going on, but a lot of the podcasters I watch, they sort of talk about it's really good for content, when we come into rough times. And so, and I think you've mentioned before, with Hull City coming into the end of the season, if we're below 16th, there's always a lot of content to talk about, and there's always a lot to talk about. And I don't know. I think sorry, you go.
No, I'm going to find it fascinating if we have a season where coming into the last 4 or 5 games of the season, we're sitting in sort of 12th or 13th, like Swansea or Norwich. I know you made the point yesterday in the chat that I think mathematically every team can still either go up or down. So I'm sure we'd still be sitting here clinging to some, faint hope of clawing away into the top 6 if we were mid-table. But I can't imagine a season really where you sort of have your season finished with 5-6 games to go, and you're sort of sitting there going, well, I guess we're talking about next season. I guess we're talking about which players we want to keep. We're talking about whether we think the manager's up to it, and all sorts of things like that. But for the time being, at least, and look, I did reference the Plymouth win just before. It does make things interesting at the bottom now with, the bottom 3 all separated by about 2 points. And you think if any of those, if Plymouth gets another win, for example, yes, they're still only going to be level with Derby, but you're getting into that position where you're suddenly saying, well, hang on, it's not just the Cardiff that we're looking out for and trying to outrun it. So it's all three of them. So I think Luton play someone this Friday night. And we are sort of jumping ahead before talking Coventry, but I guess it's sort of significant with the result. Yeah, Derby play Luton. Perfect example. So they're playing each other, which in a sense for us is good because it means that, they can't both pick up points. And we are sort of getting to a point where you go, well, I guess we probably want Derby to win that just to really stretch out from that bottom three. But if they were to draw with each other, for example, that's great for us because it means they're both dropping points. Derby stay below us. Luton are really, 4 points below us with, 3 games left to play before we've even played our game against Preston. It does start to get, the margins become so tight with like 4 games left. And then after this weekend, it'll be 2 games left after the Preston game. So, all to play for. But look, we'll talk Coventry specifically then. So that point against Coventry really proving quite a valuable one in the context of that table, and especially the manner in which we went behind. I think yet again the goal right after halftime. Again, it's an unlucky one. Like it's a deflection off Hughes, but you think you've got that one. You've got the goal against Luton. You've got the goal against Watford, which wasn't too long after halftime. There's a few others that probably don't come to mind immediately, but how many goals did there have to be before? It's not just a luck. It's I don't know, the players aren't fully switched on or whatever it is.
Yeah, this was just a classic City game, wasn't it? Where, first 10, 15 minutes, I didn't think we looked too bad at all. We're kind of holding our own end. We were sort of, you mentioned the other week that it's probably one of those games where we need to come out firing because this team isn't going to be they're Coventry are trying to stay in the top 6. And so they're going to be sort of in our end as much as they can be and taking chances. And I think you mentioned, our counter attack could probably benefit with that style of play that they're doing. And I thought that's what we were doing in the first 10, 15 minutes. And, we were pressing on them. When it came to after that, like that 15-minute period, it just sort of fell off a little bit for me. But yeah, I was dipping in and out after halftime. I thought I would close my eyes a little bit and,
you blink and suddenly 20 minutes later. Yeah. I thought Palmer had No, I was just going to say, I thought Palmer had a really good chance to him at the first half, right at the end of the first half. And I think Slater's been guilty of a few bad misses himself this season, but I'm sure he felt pretty stiffed not to come away with at least one assist because he had the chance that he cut back to Palmer in the first half and then the chance he cut back to Coyle in the second half. And Palmer, with that one in the first half, is like getting 2 chances at it and then almost like an own goal from Coventry as well as a result. It felt like, to your point, Coventry was sort of all over us for a lot of that first half, but then it almost felt like the best chance fell to us.
Yeah, and we got 9 shots, 3 on target. 45% possession's not terrible for a team.
And I think that almost suits us. Like, I can't remember if it was with yourself or Dan. I was having a conversation around the fact that we seem to actually play better when we don't have more of the ball, and the more of the ball we have, we actually don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly. So that was good. And I was just thinking, like after dozing off, it's the classic getting woken up to someone scoring. Unfortunately,
cheers.
I woke up and I was like, oh, what? And saw that, it was them. And like 90 seconds in or something like that. So, like I said before, it's a classic City game where, we start off strong, sort of fade off, then the other team, we concede, right after halftime, and then you got to push through the rest of the game because something magic might happen, and that's exactly what happened. I will say though, Pandor just through the first half and obviously the second half as well. Like he really made some exciting saves and obviously crucial saves, but it sort of obviously kept us in it. But he's sort of holding the weight of the team in terms of exciting things happening sometimes because we're not really doing a lot of fun attacking football that we were sort of promised by the owner.
And I think with Panda as well, a really underrated aspect of his saves is the fact that, and you don't see it that much with modern keepers. I sound very old saying that, but I just mean, I guess keepers these days don't save and catch the ball. They'll palm it away for a corner or out onto the field to one of their defenders. But he on a number of times was able to actually trap the ball and catch it either between his legs or in his hands. And it's just, you feel so much more confident when you've got a keeper who's sort of that confident in his ability that he can actually trap the ball. It's not going to slip through his hands into the goal or things like that, like a keeper at Leeds, shall we say. And I think his defense must take a lot of confidence from that. I mean, he must be so frustrated when he concedes those sorts of goals like he did, where he's basically wrong-footed and Hughes has knocked the ball past him, where it's really through no fault of his own. And a terrific display from him again.
Yeah, it but you pretty much hit the nail on the head there, where it sort of gives us confidence as well that he can actually do that. But like, I think it disables any type of chance that the other team could have when he does that. So I think, some might just see it. It's like, he caught the ball, but there's so many times that we're sort of on the back foot because it is a corner or a set piece, or, that it falls to the wrong person. And it just stifles any chance that the other team could have with that. But I guess coming into the second half, what did you make of the second half?
Yeah, I thought, I said to you before, because I ended up watching this as a replay Monday morning because by virtue of the TV network that has it over here, the replays got pretty quickly. So I didn't get up at 4:45 to watch it. I just watched the replay first thing in the morning. And when we conceded, and I did see, I think, a message from you in the chat saying that it was a reasonably poor performance. And I thought, it's just going to be another 1-0 defeat. So I actually did the wrong thing and checked the score while still watching the game and saw that it finished 1-1 and went, oh, okay, there is actually a reason for me to continue watching this, which I think in a way might colour my perspective on that second half, where you kind of know a goal's coming, so you're kind of a bit more optimistic about how we're playing. But I thought Gelhardt was really good. I thought, I guess the most frustrating thing is that when we go forward or when we try and drive forward, we do actually look quite good. And we sort of talk a bit about how so often we sort of seem quite slow with the ball or don't really know what to do with it. But anytime Gelhardt picked it up and actually drove at the Mac, we actually looked really attacking. And then I think, the subs, as tends to be the case for us, do a good job. I mean, I thought Kamara coming on.
Who came on there? Was Kamara?
It was Kamara and Amrabat, was it? I can't remember if they came on together, but they definitely combined for the goal. I'm trying to think who else would have come on, because I think I'm going to have a look at
Lincoln get taken off.
Yeah, I think Lincoln might have gone off for Amrabat, and then I want to say that I'm just having a look. So Lincoln went off for Amrabat, Palmer went off for Kamara. So I guess then we shifted Gelhardt more central, which is another one, like we sort of talked last week, that Gelhardt is actually probably the most productive centrally, but you've then got Crooks and Palmer kind of competing for that central role. So, and they're both City players versus Gelhardt being on loan. So you kind of go, well, who do you sort of prioritize? So it's a tricky one, but I thought Kamara looks, he looks bright off the bench, doesn't seem to be as effective when he starts. But it's just a hopeful punt up the field from Amrabat that Kamara gets onto and has a hopeful shot. And it's, if we just have a higher volume of shots and actually try and, have a roll of the dice, some things might come off for us. You get that lucky deflection. We always sort of bemoan how unlucky we are with some of the goals we concede, but we just don't create luck ourselves up the other end very often.
We've spoken about it before this season, like creating luck is, obviously when you create luck, things fall in your favor. And the players that we've got at the moment that are sort of doing that, I sort of look at Gelhardt, like you were saying before. He always just seems really motivated with the ball, and when he's driving up the field, and really happy with Palmer. In the first half a little bit there, because he sort of controls the game a bit more. And then, sorry, I was just looking at the substitutes here. We've got Jones, Drame, Crooks, Amrabat, Kamara. I forgot that Egan came off there.
Yeah, Egan came off with a knock. It sounded like he had issues with his vision. So I suspect if that's a concussion or something like that, that Jones, I would have thought Jones will come in from the start anyway. It seems as if I mean, we sort of said last week as well about the fact because Coventry have some taller strikers that Egan might have made more sense. And then I think with someone like a Swansea and a Preston where they probably have a smaller strike force, that maybe a Jones who's a bit more mobile might make more sense there. And Crooks and Drame coming on late in the game as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who's your top three?
I was just going to ask you that question. I can go first. So I had Panda for the 3 votes. I thought that was he was sort of head and shoulders above the rest of the side in that sense. Gelhardt for the 2. I thought he was probably our most potent attacker over the course of the game. And then Slater for the 1 vote. I thought he really should have come away with at least an assist. I thought it was probably one of his better games in recent weeks, to be honest. I thought he was really impressive in terms of how he got forward. There was one particular play where he linked up with, I want to say Gelhardt, but I can't remember exactly who it was, where they played a lovely through ball for him between a couple of players. I think it was actually the play that led to his cross for Coyle. And, Coyle probably should have done better with the chance. I thought Slater was terrific in this one. How about you?
I'm going to say Pando, obviously. Just incredible game again. Another incredible game by him. We've been saying he could come out this season as player of the season. And
he's got it, yeah.
I hope he really does. Let's go. I'm going to go. That's hard. I'm going to go Kamara.
Got to recognise the goal scorer, yeah, that's fair.
Got it, yeah, exactly, yeah. And then I'm sort of torn between Gelhardt and Slater now, so we'll go Gelhardt.
Yeah, fair.
He's been really looking, he looks good. Even when he has an off game, he still seems like he's put in a bit of work.
Yeah, he still has, even in his off days, he still, there's games where I think someone like a Crooks just goes completely missing. But with Gelhardt, even if he has an off day, he still at least has a couple of moments where he looks really, really dangerous and attacking, which is good. Okay, well, we'll talk Swansea and Preston then. We'll probably talk about them as a collective, both teams in white, both teams mid-table, on the beach. I think Preston are 16th, Swansea are 12th. Swansea have actually won 3 games in a row, which has sort of gone under the radar for me. But the fact that they're both now, I would say, safe and, mathematically perhaps a chance of still going up or going down, I think they're very much on the beach in that sense. It's a real opportunity for us. We were just sort of saying, Luton play Derby. There's a few other big games down the bottom of the table as well that you think after this period, we're already 3 points clear of Cardiff with the goal difference as well. So best case scenario for us, we win both games, they lose both games, and then we are mathematically safe. Maybe a more realistic scenario is we win 1, they win 1, and even then we still come out of this period essentially 4 points clear with 2 games left. And you go, well, that's almost safe. Worst case scenario, obviously, is we lose both, they win both, and that's I think that one of their games I think they've got Sheffield United. So Sheffield United have been sort of imploding a bit, but you think if Cardiff were to win both games, it'd be pretty remarkable. So, I don't know. Are you sort of, I mean, are you getting the sense that this could be the weekend where we secure safety, or are you of the mind frame that it's City and we don't do things easily and whatever happens,
we love a challenge.
We love a challenge, and however much we think, we're just going to get it done, it's going to be safe, it's going to be fine, something always happens that means it goes down to the last day and goes down to the wire to be completely safe.
I don't know. It's at this point with this season so far, it
doesn't feel like it's going to be easy.
It's never going to be easy, I don't think, for us. But I want to have high hopes and say that we'll be in a really good position for staying up. And so, Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at Sheffield. They've lost the last 3 games.
Yeah.
So yeah, honestly, like we have to make something of these last 4 games, and Swansea and Preston are going to be the harder ones, and so I don't know if we thrive with that. I don't know, style of play. Like if we can come away with a point from Coventry, surely we can do something with Swansea and Preston. So
And,
the magic
and I
number
think that,
50.
yeah,
Maybe?
I don't even know if it's 50 anymore, to be honest, because
It's probably more now.
I was thinking
Or
less, because I think
oh yeah, actually yeah, it
I
would be,
think
'cause-
because we're away, where I'll bring the table back up while we're talking. I guess I just sort of think it's almost even less than that, because you think we're away, we're 45 points. And I always think one more win does it. Like, you get to 48 points, you're then saying Cardiff have to win.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Call it 2 wins and a draw from their last 4 games. So go 3. They have 1 win in their last 5. They'd have to basically go 2 wins and a draw and only 1 loss in their last 4 games, when they've got Sheffield United, as we said, and then they've also got Oxford, which would be massive, West Brom, who are chasing the top 6, and what have I just done there? And then they finish off with Norwich, who are also, I mean, you could probably say that they're done. So I could definitely see them beating Oxford, because Oxford are basically safe. Sheffield United, if they continue to implode, hey, maybe they win that. So maybe things do go a bit crazy, but I don't know if I could see them winning both of those. And if they don't win both of those, then they've got to basically close out the season with a couple of wins. So, I'd almost say 48, 49 points is enough at this point. But then I think, to your point as well, in terms of our fixtures, I mean, these are probably the 2. Did you say easier or harder? Because I definitely think these are the 2 easier of the remaining games, in the sense that Derby still to come will be massive. And I really think that could be a repeat of that Luton game if we don't have enough points on the board by then. And then finishing off with Portsmouth. And so if Portsmouth aren't clear as well, and they're needing a win or a result, that could also prove really challenging. I do wonder, it could get to a point where for us and Portsmouth, a point for each of us is enough, and we sort of sit there and just have a really boring 0-0 and we're both fine, which I know some teams sometimes do. So I think that'll be really interesting. But yeah, it just makes this weekend, so what we've got Saturday morning, and then, because what time's the Swansea game's midnight.
So that'd be Friday night for us.
Friday night, midnight, and then
midnight.
Monday night, midnight for Preston, which is a tough time zone, tough time slot, considering it's a work day on the Tuesday. But we'll see how we go with that one.
I think I'm definitely, I don't know if I'm going to make that Swansea one. I'm fishing tomorrow at 4 a.m. and then I got a Dolphins game. Sorry to bring up NRL again. I know it's probably the Antichrist, but I got a game at 8 p.m. which finishes usually around 10:30. So,
yeah, that will be tight.
I'm going to make that Swansea one, but I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, no, that's all good. But yeah, so I guess, starting with that Swansea game. Look, I guess, talking about both games together. I mean, I sort of think similar to the last time we had the 2-game block, 4 points out of these 2 games would be fine by me. I think that 4 points kind of keeps you ticking, keeps you moving up the table. And I think, as we just said, it would basically secure safety. But in terms of the lineup, any thoughts on any changes that we'd make?
Oh, geez, I don't know. Maybe because we got 2 close games, maybe start Kamara. Start Kamara. I don't know. Egan, is he out?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of that.
If
it is a concussion, then I guess he would be. He'd probably miss both of these games, given I think it's like a 10-day.
Yeah, they do usually like
7-day
thing.
Whatever it is.
Probably, obviously, Jones in then for that.
Maybe Joseph, Carl Joseph coming in. I don't know if he'd start over Pedro, but whether he gets a go. Because I almost think, like, I'd love to see a sort of Kamara and Joseph on the wings, and then give Gelhardt a run centrally, because I think that might be a better spot for him to actually, show his full capability, I guess.
I wonder what Sayers has got planned for this, because sort of what you're like you said before, like if we win both these games, that's we're good.
Yeah.
And so do you just throw everyone into the mix? Well, not everyone into the mix, obviously, but like, do we just go balls to the wall and like we gotta win these two, and if we can come away with 2 wins, I mean, even potentially, obviously, 1 win and a draw would be statistically pretty good for us as well. I don't know.
It's an interesting one. I think it's going to be an interesting couple of games. And then I guess we can start to look forward to planning for next season, which will be interesting. I think, you don't want to look too far ahead too quickly, but I think one of the big advantages that we have coming into this summer will be hopefully a bit less turnover. We've got a relatively stable squad. I think Gelhardt's probably the one that I'd love to get him back here next season, but I think will prove tricky. But everyone else is pretty much here on a permanent deal, which helps.
Yeah.
And then it's almost just a case of managing. I mean, I'd completely forgotten until I was listening to the 1904 Club the other day, and you think about players like Omer, Giles, who was the other one? Who else was that on loan? Mellum over in Germany. Simon's in League One. There's a lot of loaned players who'll come back into this squad. So even if we don't bring in too many players, even if we only say bring in, I don't know, I'd say call it 4 players. You bring in a striker, you bring in 2 new fullbacks, and maybe you bring in a keeper, because of course Richopi as well.
Yeah.
There's still going to be a lot of players that kind of go out the exit door.
I don't think it's too early to talk about it, because might as well. Like, let's assume that we stay up as well. But like, I was just thinking, like, last season was probably one of the hardest championship seasons in a while. So you would have a lot of talent. I'm just trying to think all the talent that got poached last season from all the teams that into the Premier League that may potentially be available.
Well, Ipswich coming back down. You think like Jack Clark and stuff, who's with them.
That's what I'm just trying to think, like, with the teams
Jacob
that went up as well. Exactly, yeah. And all these different teams that might not be doing as well in the Premiership. The Premier League. I'm just trying to think who's available potentially coming into this season. I reckon there might even be a bigger pool this season than there was last season. Also coming into the transfers, but it's a while away.
And it's going to be interesting as well, because you would think you sort of assume what Leeds, Burnley and Sheffield United will likely be the 3 to go up. But it then means that you've got clubs like for example, if Luton go down, whether any of their players then look for moves into the Championship. So I think Adebayo's out with an ACL, but Carlton Morris as a striking option, or is it Ryan Hardy, I think, at Plymouth is another one. Like, there's a few good players where if we're really serious about getting in a striker who can actually score goals, then there's a few options to look at down the bottom, let alone also you've got clubs at the top where, for example, Tom Cannon, I know, joined Sheffield United, but he hasn't scored a goal for them yet. Now,
true. Yeah,
that might run counter to my point around bringing in players who can score goals, but I think he had a reasonable spell at Stoke and has done well previously at other clubs. And you think players like that who might get released or sold at a cut price, things or just loaned out, things like that, you do start to get a few options appearing from those sorts of clubs. So no, look, it'll be interesting. And then of course, when I was thinking the 4 players to come in, you're not even thinking like if we did sign Puerta permanently, for example, or Zambrano, his band's reduced. If we get Louis Barry back on loan, things like that. It'll still be an interesting summer. I just hope it'll be a bit, it's not going to be like the 15 players in or whatever it was that we saw,
Definitely not. I hope we can, settle that a little bit. But yeah, I think like even if we don't get that many in outside of like confirming or just keeping a couple of loan players, if we're lucky, yeah, we've got plenty of loan players players coming back on loan, and and injury. People come back from injury. You got Balumi, so I don't know. Exciting times ahead. Anyways, we'll probably start talking about it soon. Anyways,
yeah, I found it wild when we were looking at the fact that Kamara now has the most goal contributions for City this season with
crazy.
7, I think it was. I think third on the list is still Balumi with like 4 contributions, which
what could have been.
What could have been? Like he looked brilliant. Like he was really starting to show that he had that sort of X factor. So I'm really hoping he can come back and still have that about his game. I guess the last factor to touch on then, still sort of somewhat looking ahead, is Ruben Sayers himself. And there's a few murmurings, and I think it's always going to be inevitable when you have a Dow 1-0 loss at home to like a Luton or whoever it might be, and you're kind of going, well, is this the manager capable of taking us to that next level? And I think it's so tough at the moment to look at a squad that's really sort of, on the tightrope of a relegation battle, and knowing that any mistake can have huge ramifications, and expect them to play this lovely, expansive football. And I find it really hard, therefore, to judge what we actually look like under Sayers, from the start of a season. So what's your sort of take on, I guess, what he's shown us so far as a manager, where you think, like, is he the right manager to go forward with, and how long you kind of give him to prove that he does have that, ability to develop that style?
I'm trying to think, how many losses does he have this season?
Good question. I think it's something like 8 or 9 wins, I want to say, because I think we had 3 under Volta, because we've got the 3 in a row, and we've got 11 or 12 wins now.
Oh, yeah. So we got 8 wins.
Actually, I mean, we might have won. We didn't win under Dawson, did we? So yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Just for Sayers, we got 8 wins, 7 draws, 9 losses. I mean, coming off the back of sort of what he had to pick up, I think he's done pretty well.
Yeah.
But
even in terms of the style.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with the style at the moment. Like, I thought I knew more about him in the first 6 weeks than I do now.
Yeah.
Like it sort of made sense, and I don't know if that's because there was injuries or maybe just having to sort of figure out like what to do with the squad, especially new players coming in. He came in December, so he had January.
And how many players did we sign in January? Like 10, 7?
Something
huge.
Crazy. I'm still yet to learn everyone on a first name basis, so it's I'm still catching up. But yeah, I think it's been a bit hard to sort of see his style, but I think we get hints of it when we play a strong game. I'm trying to think of like a certain game that we won in the last
like Sheffield United to me is a really perfect, like if you wanted a game that showed what can we look like at our best against a good quality opposition. I think his style is still definitely, like, my only concern, and I think he's been great. I want to give him, call it till January to really sort of go, we had we've had a preseason, a clean slate, a couple of new players to shape the edges of the squad, trim some of the fat, see what we can do. I think my only concern is around, again, in games where we're going to have 60% of the ball, do we have the ability, or do we have the setup to break down teams or to pass through teams and still score goals and have that high volume of chance creation that you sort of need in those sorts of games? But in saying that, like, you look at a Burnley, like, you don't need to be playing this hugely sexy, attractive football to go up. It's just whether Ajun is after that, or if he gets a bit impatient. But I think, look, I think if we cut down on the errors, if we start scoring even just, an extra goal every game or so, and you're suddenly looking at, scoring 60 or 70 goals instead of 40 or 50, I don't see any reason. Like I look at our results this season under him, and I think, well, putting aside the poor form at home, which has been an issue for multiple managers now, we're actually getting good results against good sides. So you think from the start of a season, there's no reason that we couldn't be up competing for the top 6.
That's sort of what I'm thinking and leaning towards. And well, assuming everything goes well in preseason and he's got the support that he needs, and sort of what you were saying before about like Ajun wanting a certain type of football. That's sort of what I was thinking. I wonder what pressures he's had already with the club so far. Not pressures, potentially that he could be ousted or anything like that, but mainly like I hope he's sort of you're not being micromanaged in a way, and like it didn't sound like the others were maybe towards the end there with Liam that they were sort of wanting a certain result, and obviously we didn't get promoted, but in the playoffs, but like it'll be interesting to see what and how they'll manage the preseason from a management level outside of signings, and whether they have as much, if they have their hands all over it, or maybe they'll just let him do what he needs to do best, and they've learned that hopefully.
Yeah, and I think having less turnover in the squad will help with that, because it does mean that it's not like last season where we needed them to be involved in signing players. Now it's more a case of, okay, just let Sayers do his thing on the training pitch with this squad and see what we can do, because we could come out next season and Joseph could look a whole lot better once he's settled in the system. You've got Kamara, Balumi, Miller potentially back from injury, Barry back on loan, I should say. You could just have that natural improvement in the squad rather than actually needing to bring in too many extra pieces. So,
and who was it that so when we were thinking back to like what's his name last season
Sembra.
we had last season bloody he went to Ipswich, not Greaves.
Philogene?
Ipswich?
Delap?
No, sorry, not back to Ipswich. So it was Philogene and what's the other one? Delap. That's who I'm thinking of. I'm just trying to think, like who did we have at the club that was involved in getting them over the line? Like, was that a Liam thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question.
Think, because we moved on our scout, or
so I think Liam had worked with Delap at. I'm going to get this wrong. I think Delap was
he asked? No, he wasn't asked.
Derby. No, Delap was Man City, but I feel like he was on loan somewhere, or he developed somewhere, and Liam did have a connection to him. So there is always the suggestion that there was a prior connection with some of those players. Philogene, I think, was more just a case of, this guy is a quality player. Let's try and get him in on loan. And then I think somehow we managed to get it as a permanent deal. So Delap was at Derby as a youth prospect until 2019, and then went to Man City. So I think there was an overlap at Derby, which is what I'm thinking of. So look, it'll be interesting to see if we can find the talent to the same extent as we did. And I look at like a Louis Barry, and I think like we do still clearly have some pull in that sense. And hopefully with someone like Sayers being a consistent link, you've also got then the fact that there's a lot of good quality youngsters at Reading who Sayers would probably be able to connect with more than he was able to in January, because I think there's a bit of a rumor or conjecture that maybe when we got Sayers in, there was an agreement that we wouldn't go back in and get Reading players straight away. So whether we can do that
right now.
Yeah, that's right.
They always say that.
Yeah. So that could be interesting as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to use Sayers as a pretty reputable source. I mean, Southampton as well. His links with Southampton, whether there's any youngsters that we can pull in from there. True. Look, I think we're sort of sitting here kind of starting to talk about the summer. We do still have Swansea and Preston to go, but I think it will be an interesting summer. I think if we can get 4 points from these two games, it really sets us up to start to look ahead a bit more. It also helps the club start to, plan contracts and, re-signing players, releasing players, that sort of thing as well. So, the quicker we can get that certainty around survival, the better. And yeah, hopefully it starts with a couple of wins against Swansea and Preston, and we're talking about another season of Championship football.
Yep, 4 points. Let's call it here. Who do
Absolutely.
you have? Who's got the 3?
I think we're more likely to beat Swansea, actually.
Yep.
I
So my
reckon
dog wants to go for a
Swansea's.
walk.
Yeah, no, that's all good. I'm going to go for a walk in a second as well. I reckon we're more likely to beat Swansea, and I think Preston could be like a 0-0 or a 1-1. I think they're the perfect team for the, we struggle to break them down. They'll give us sort of 60-65% of the ball, whereas Swansea, I think, will go a bit more at us. So, yeah, how about you?
I'm going to go 1-0 on Swansea and 2-1 on Preston.
Oh, we'll get the 6 points.
Let's win. Yeah. Let's get
Why
6. Even better. Let's push for is it
mid-table? Let's go for 12.
Is it possible to go? Yeah.
I think it probably is.
I mean, when we said before the math around every single team can either they can go up or they can go down. Like every single team has a chance of either going up. Obviously we're not going up.
Yeah.
And, Sheffield's not going down. But I think there's like three or 4 mid
who could go either. Yeah.
Who could go either, which is nuts. So this is why we love the Championship, and this is why it's the best. So
no
that's
doubt.
me though.
Well, no, thanks for joining me for this one, Del.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. And thanks everyone for listening in. Here's to 6 points over the Easter break. Hopefully everyone has a fantastic Easter break with friends and family. And we'll be back next week to talk all things City. Until then, come on, City.